Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's panel discussion that takes a closer look at neurodivergence in the workplace from three unique perspectives. My name is Gail Kessler, and I am a white middle-aged woman with auburn-colored mid-length hair with bangs that my hairdresser assures me will grow out. I am wearing red-rimmed glasses and a rust-colored jacket with a rust cream and orange multi-patterned blouse underneath, along with bronze sparkle ball earrings. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge that Autism CanTech, the program that I and two of my colleagues on the panel here today represent, is located across many traditional and treaty lands, including those of the Coast Salish people of the Kikite and Coquitlam First Nations to the west, through the traditional territories of the Cree, Dene, Stoney Nakoda, Nakota Sioux, Anishinaabe, Métis, and Inuit, all the way to the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit in the east. As a program and a team, we are dedicated to ensuring that these traditional lands and their First Peoples are honored and respected. In this spirit, we invite you to reflect on your relationship to the lands on which you are currently located and think about the actions you can take to make positive change in your community in this time of reconciliation. For myself, I have committed to participate in truth and reconciliation as a white settler by making efforts to seek out information and learnings about Indigenous culture, listening instead of speaking with regards to the Indigenous experience, and working to ensure I know more about the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and how to action them. Following our panel presentations, there will be a live Q&A session where you will have time to ask all four of our panel members any questions. Though if time allows, I believe that presenters will also try to hold space for a few questions directly following their presentation. With that format in mind, if you have a question rising during the presentation, please feel free to type it into the Q&A box, the chat, or jot it down to ask later so that it stays top of mind for you, and our presentation facilitators will ensure that they are captured. Following the presentations and the Q&A session, there will be a networking session at 2:05 to 2:25 p.m., specifically designed as an opportunity where delegates can join the discussion and share their ideas and thoughts. If the conversation has already been started, you may continue the discussion in the networking room. I just want to make sure that our first presenter is available. I don't know if I see Annie yet, so maybe Angela, if you don't mind, I'll just change the order just a little bit and invite Angela Taylor, CEO and founder of Inspire Community Outreach, to step forth and share her presentation.
Let me get this gorgeous for you guys. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much. I'm going to be presenting on neurodiversity in the workplace, an introduction to celebrating neurodiversity in business, in our employment. I am here on behalf of Inspire Community Outreach. I founded Inspire in 2013. It's a national charity. Inspire is a charitable social services organization that provides evidence-based, culturally informed, and family-centered education and programming designed to meet the needs of those living with mental health issues and neurological or cognitive differences, compassion, education, and inclusion. Inspire is located on Treaty 1 territory land, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oshie-Cree, Dakota, and Dene, and the homeland of the Métis. We also acknowledge that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. Inspire is committed to truth and reconciliation, decolonization of systems, compassionate, responsive, and inclusive care. I am a middle-aged woman with, I'd say, a dark ginger colored hair, kind of curly, very long, and with a, I would say, a kind heart, and a blazer that's very fancy with artwork, just delicious artwork behind. So I want to talk a little bit about how neurodivergence and neurodiversity is actually an asset to community as a whole, but in this particular conversation into the workplace, through understanding accommodation and evolving workplace culture, planning with innovation in mind. I am a neurodivergent woman. I am multiply neurodivergent. And I came upon that information as I was getting my son diagnosed as a very small, adorable, wonderful autistic boy. And through that process, I learned a lot about myself in adoring that child, about neurodiversity, about inclusion, about accessibility and accommodation, and how each of us can really discover how our strengths blend into community and bring passion and joy and learning for all, and how much we need neurodivergence. So when I talk about neurodivergence, I talk about neurological or brain wiring differences. I talk about the approximately 12 to 20% of individuals who would be either self-identify or be diagnosed with a brain wiring difference. You might have heard some of these important terms and definitions before, but neurologically typical or neurotypical means a person whose brain wiring is considered typical or the average. So the 80% of individuals who have kind of a standard type of neurology, those sad folks, okay? Neurodiversity is an umbrella term. It's the natural diversity of human brains. Think about a different wiring or operating system. Neurodiverse is a group of people with differently wired brains, and neurodivergent is the particular person. So I am a neurodivergent woman. Neurocomplex is a term that I created many years ago while I was completing my PhD. I have a master's of disability studies, and throughout that time is where I became aware that I was neurodivergent. And I felt like describing brain differences wasn't enough. It doesn't really incorporate my lived experience of those brain differences, which actually fluctuates depending on my environment, including the people and relationships that I keep, including the lighting, including so many things, allows me to kind of embrace the capacity that I have on any given day. So neurocomplexity for me incorporates all of those important pieces and talks about the complexity of what it is to be neurodivergent. Some of the neurodiversities that I experience is ADHD combined type, the fancy version. I also have complex PTSD as a post-traumatic stress disorder. In addition to some really delightful ones like chromesthesia, which is where that I actually see and I also sense, feel music and sound. So when we talk about neurodiversity, we can mean a lot of different things. Here are some of the more commonly talked about neurodivergence. There are other ones as well that are not listed, and these are some strengths about these types of differences. I also have learning disabilities like dyslexia. Some of the innovation, some of the creativity, some of the beauty that comes with being neurodivergent are listed, but I want to plant the seed that there are many more. I want you to consider some of the greatest innovators of all time and be curious of if they were, thinking in a typically wired way or not, and likely they weren't. We can't have that innovation without having some pain points, but sticking on the pain points is where we mostly shift towards, doesn't serve anybody. You will notice that it says ASC, which is autism spectrum condition. Although as a researcher, I haven't found articles that talk about it being a condition versus a disorder. I do consider it a condition versus a disorder. In addition to, there's mental health listed. Over the many years, neurodiversity has already included bipolar 1 and 2 and schizophrenia. But over the last few years, there's lots of curiosity about other types of mental health conditions like anxiety and depression. So I want to plant that seed as well. 87% of adults with ADHD live with a significant psychiatric disorder, such as substance misuse or anxiety, depression, etc. The overlap between mental health and neurodivergence is really shocking. They're based in the same part of the brain. A neurodivergent person might have up to 10 times the neurological pathways in less gray matter. So there are actually more similarities between the differences, the neurological differences, such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, even acquired neurodiversity, which would be, I wasn't born with that trauma, but I collected it like treasures along the way. So that acquired means I collected it as an adult or as a child after I was born. The other neurological differences are often, there's a genetic component. I was born dyslexic. I was born with ADHD. So the intersection between my lived experience, the acquired neurodiversity, my environment, my relationships, affect my mental health, affect how I experience the world, and also affect my neurological differences. I created this piece a number of years ago to kind of symbolize how I think of neurodivergence. It's like a rainbow. There's an image with a woman kind of maybe in the fetal position or kind of cuddled up in black and white. And then from her mind, there are a variety of colors moving upward and outward in a rainbow sequence. And all of the colors, they kind of bleed into one another. It's a little bit like magic, neurodivergence. That's how I think of it. There are all kinds of similarities in neurodivergence that I want to highlight. One is that up to 99% of individuals with ADHD experience rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is where we sense rejection where there isn't any. The reason this is so important when I think about neurodivergence is that a lot of the relational concerns that we see in a workplace are based in this feeling of rejection, the seeking of belonging. As a neurodivergent woman, I never felt like I fit in. I can remember being 2 or 3 years old, feeling like I didn't fit in with my family, I didn't fit in with my peers, and I didn't fit in no matter where I went in society. The world is not made for disabilities. We don't make and process dopamine the same way, so we tend to be more impulsive. We tend to seek newness in a way that the neurologically typical do not understand. And how that plays out in the workplace can be a multitude of factors. They say a young person by the age of 12 who has ADHD experiences 20,000 more negative inputs in terms of individuals responding to them, including their educators and parents, etc. And all of those things we carry now, that trauma we carry now. I do want to plant the seed that there are many ways to process our traumas. If we can just please mute whoever is speaking. An individual that's neurologically typical versus somebody who's got more neurological wiring, let's say 10 times as much, experience the same exact situation. Who's more likely to be traumatized? So I want to plant the seed about, no matter whether it's day 1 or day 151 or 20 years later, if you have an opportunity to seek support and process your trauma, 2 of the ones that I urge folks as a clinician to seek is EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy, and brain spotting, which has some similar fundamentals and is very powerful. So if the neurodivergent is experiencing more trauma and they're carrying that, and then it's kind of causing an increase in symptoms, think about how all that plays out into the workplace. There's an image that says, me, I need to do a thing. Body, you did a thing yesterday and that's enough things. When I think about the window of tolerance, every human has one. And the neurodivergent, we tend to have a different sequence. We have an ebb and a flow that we have to pay very close attention to. And it takes a lot of skill and a lot of energy. I find for me, my window of tolerance is significantly higher and smaller than other people's, which means I need more going on. I need a very busy life. I need multiple projects at once. I need multiple teams. I need flexibility in my workday to go to the ebb and the flow of what my brain and my body is asking. I need the flexibility and the freedom to say, this is what I am needing, or I need to work at 10 o'clock at night because my body is asking to work. You don't choose the flow chooses you. And if your body asks to do a project at a specific time and you need to work on it for a few hours, that flexibility is critical. If there's too many inputs in your environment, so you're taking in 10 times the sensory input in terms of sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell, it might put you into a hyper arousal state where you cannot be your favorite self. There's no flow in a hyper aroused state. That sensory overwhelm, your brain goes on fire. A neurodivergent affirming workplace understands the ebbs and the flows. They understand that me as an individual, I'm not going to produce my best work at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's not going to be where you're going to see me shine, okay? I'm going to look a little haggard, okay, my friends? It's going to be a little rough. If I can work in the afternoon, you're going to have a really high quality work. You're going to have my attention. I'm going to be able to produce clinical recommendations that 8 a.m. Angela cannot. Now, if I can synthesize data and provide you high quality synthesization at 10 o'clock at night, again, that's better quality. Understanding the ebbs and flows of time of day, day of the week of the month. Think about hormones and flow in terms of energy levels. Think about time of year, light outside, where's your window? Vitamin deficiencies because of location of where we live. All of those things affect our window of tolerance and our productivity. In terms of accessibility and requesting accommodations, at this stage in my life, minutes from 40, I now disclose that I need accommodations readily. I talk about it at every conference. I talk about accessibility and disability everywhere I go, on every medium, in the paper. Also, that's me at a place of privilege. My colleagues don't have necessarily the same opportunity to disclose just accommodations. I recall getting going in to get my master's degree and having a conversation that I had to disclose all of my disabilities to get accommodations in university. Without having a documentation from a practitioner, a doctor, saying that I was disabled, I wasn't allowed to have them. So things are shifting in the workplace, and that's really comforting to see. I have a free document that I'm ready to share with all kinds of accommodations and any kind of situation in a workplace, with some of the wording that workplaces are more readily able to hear. In terms of the accessibility and requesting accommodations, I'll let you know what mine are. I think it's a hard place to know where to start, to know the language. First off, if I'm working at a place, it's because I want to work there. I'm excited to be a part of the culture, shift the culture, and invest into community. I love community, and whatever I'm doing, I want to invest into community members and the love of my world. So starting out with that is a good place. For me, working from home is a necessity, at least some of the time. For number one, travel. I hate it. It's not my favorite. Also, this is where all my snacks are. And snacks are just really important to me. Also, I need to have 3 drinks at all times. I'm not sure if that's a neurodivergent thing. I hear it is, but having 3 separate drinks is super important. And working from home, it's easier to get all the drinks. So it works out great for everybody. Setting up and having something started. or having something started is very difficult for the neurodivergent. Starting a project can be really tough. And so having a template for me of very clear instructions of what is required, due dates, etc., who can I ask if I need support, et cetera, all of those things are integral to my success, because the starting for me sometimes feels impossible. Being part of a team where I can do a collaboration discussion and set different pieces of the itinerary is lovely. And then I feel motivated. I'm excited to start on that project and do, 1 through 10, the steps. For me, having my space set up just so, with natural light, with the 3 drinks and snacks of preference, very important, very important. I think of everything like to start a project or to do a project, there's 10 steps, at least. So that breakdown for me and the understanding from my employer, whether that's my board of directors for my one position or my clinical teams that I support with other team members, that they have an understanding of that ebb and that flow, and that I need to work from home, and that there's going to be support that's needed in terms of questions. Without clarity, again, it puts me out of that productivity flow. It takes me out of that window of tolerance. And then once your brain's on fire, you're not able to process the same way. You cannot sequence, you cannot synthesize data, right? In terms of sensory input, the thing that triggers you the most, for me, it's sound. So having people interrupt my flow, having people knock on my door or call me, all of those things will shift me away from productivity. And it's very difficult. Again, that starting is so difficult. So having those things in place where I, at home, can put in my earbuds and block out everything and really focus is very important to me. Another piece in terms of neurodiversity or disability affirming workplaces is this idea of safety and compassion. It's one of the most important pieces of shifting our culture to celebrating humans instead of punishing them for being human. If I'm needing some flexibility on a deadline, and it's at all possible, receiving compassion when I bring that concern to my boss, for example, invites belonging, collaboration, safety. There are times when I know that that's not possible, such as with a funder. We work with lots of different funders. However, even there, sometimes there can be flexibility. Maybe I'm going to call upon a colleague to help me write that last little bit or do that editing that's just a block for me. There's safety in understanding.
Thank you, Angela. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have to keep on time. We do have 2 other presenters that we need to. Thank you so much for this presentation. There will be lots of opportunities to ask Angela some more questions at the end of the session. I do see our other presenter has arrived, so I would now invite Annie Jolie to offer her presentation. Welcome, Annie.
Okay, so I come to you today from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe Nation and the territory of Fort William First Nation. Living with undiagnosed neurodiversity, as where do I belong? Annie Jolie-Moore, Master of Arts, and also writer, advocate, and educator. So inclusion and acceptance begin with recognition. From about the age of 3, I knew I was different. At 7, I saw a psychologist who diagnosed learning disabilities, dyslexia, poor reading comprehension, and an inability to understand and use numbers and arithmetic functions. And I wonder sometimes if my parents had known then what I know now about my neurodiverse issues, if my life would have followed a different path. But here, the following is my story, and that is me as a young child. Nobody's perfect. And I tried really hard in school, even in classes I didn't like, but kept hearing the refrain, try harder. Hearing it so often, I came to believe I would never amount to anything. And by my late teens, I suspected I might have autism, and I sought help for anger and depression. But mental health professionals practically laughed at my suggestion that I might have autism or ADHD. I also accumulated a long list of other diagnoses, but doctors admitted I was not a textbook case of anything in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and yet something was wrong. When I got to university, I felt very much at home. Introduced to psychology at age 16, I became a high achiever, graduating with a Master of Arts degree at 21. I had a lot of theoretical knowledge, but didn't know how to apply that knowledge, look for a job, or handle a job interview. I wanted a job commensurate with my education, but was only considered for jobs I had no interest in. I returned to university a few times, my career ambition at that point to be a professional student, but I didn't have the money. So I was out of school, unemployed, and really scared. A career counselor administered a battery of psychometric tests, and when scored, she announced that my results were invalid because someone with a master's degree cannot fail an IQ test. So discouraged, I gave up becoming a stay-at-home mom, and that is me. But in university, I had discovered keys to my potential success. My grasp of spelling, grammar, and written English were in the superior range. In 2003, I volunteered my way into a paid job at the Independent Living Resource Center, Thunder Bay, researching and writing resource manuals for adults with disabilities, including a guide to the Canadian justice system, one for women experiencing abuse, as well as an accessibility guide, which the City of Thunder Bay used to train its employees. My research and writing talents were valued, but I still struggled. I belonged, but familiarity with the Ontarians with Disabilities Act did not equate to knowing what accommodations to request for myself. But I was thrilled to be part of something bigger. Yet others used my skills for their advantage. The executive director delegated me to write replies to all her incoming mail. And toward the end of my contract, she had me write grant proposals for funding to retain me, but no funds were available. Unemployed, I continued looking for training. I taught myself what I believed I needed to know to get another job, including lots of disability advocacy training. All of it, high-level knowledge, providing high levels opportunities while I still couldn't style my hair or tie my shoes. And who I wanted to be mattered the most. I wanted to contribute to society and to the economy, but job hunting required me to adopt a persona of normality, and I struggled with my identity. Insecurity and anxiety over everything undermined my performance, creativity, and my ability and desire to work with others. I was eventually hired for a job I'd craved for years, but the board of a peer-led mental health organization did not understand my role as systemic advocate. And they accused me of hiding in an ivory tower and being standoffish rather than advocating for individual members. They did not understand my job or me. Many were jealous. I told my coworkers I had a graduate degree, And I thought that they would be educated too, but I was wrong. Some of them believed I was glorifying myself and grew resentful, and going to work felt like being dumped into a bucket of crabs, all climbing over each other to escape, only to be dragged right back down. And I wasn't always aware when there were problems. Most communication is nonverbal. And when I couldn't interpret it, the two-way street became one way and not in my direction. And then the executive director I worked well with was abruptly terminated. In came a new ED with new rules and her own communication style. But I've been to the Supreme Court in Thunder Bay, my boss said. And if something's incorrect, I correct it. The Supreme Court is in Ottawa, I clarified for her while creating a court accessibility presentation for a government advisory committee. I survived, thrived, and I educated her on her mental health issues. But she didn't last too long. When her position came open, I competed for the job with a colleague I thought that I could trust, but I didn't understand her mental illness or her arrogant, derisive personality, and I didn't get the job. However, she did. I felt quite lost at that point. After 6.5 years as systemic advocate, I moved on to injection drug use and hepatitis C education. Again, my proficiency with research and writing allowed me success, but some out-of-town presentations were required. I'm a licensed accident-free driver, but have no sense of direction. I can get lost almost anywhere, even places I should be familiar with. I would get lost and I would panic. Fortunately, my manager ensured I didn't have to navigate on my own again, and I grew more confident in my role, although others regarded me warily because they said they couldn't read me and because I kept stuffed dogs in my car. But I was part of the team. And then 3 new managers were hired. Staff were unhappy. I sought a new job rather than having to go through another nightmare of upheaval and power struggles. Then came the end of the line. Burnt out, but still needing work, I accepted a job, which turned out to be quite different than advertised. While requiring assessment and clinical interviewing skills, it also involved administrative skills, scheduling client appointments that fit every team member's schedule, cold calling, strong verbal memory, and extraordinary time management. The job was so broad, 2 applicants were hired for the position after nearly every other whiz in the organization had applied for it and been rejected. And there were many strict rules. A dress code that my senses and identity rebelled against, no guarantee of privacy unless with a client. There was no guide how to do the job, only a lengthy list of responsibilities and a very self-important program manager who had no time to accommodate an employee with neurocognitive differences. 2.5 months into that job, the manager and medical director sat my colleague and me down saying, "We decided it was time to explain what your jobs entail." Now, we both had disabilities. My partner knew her needs and her limits, but I couldn't articulate mine. The human resources arranged a departure befitting the agency more than me, as long as I agreed in writing to not file a disability discrimination suit against them and neither one of us ended up staying on. So two themes seem to affect my success and sense of belonging. I had 3 undiagnosed neurodevelopmental conditions, and then frequent turnover in upper level management. Lack of a diagnosis deprived me and my employers of the chance to understand and adjust the workplace for my success. My son was grown by the time of my first assessment, and I was diagnosed with nonverbal learning disability. And the psychologist told me I was unlikely to learn any new skills. Found this comment by a recruiting manager. You can train intelligent people to do most of the things you need, but you cannot teach soft interpersonal skills. Soft skills such as attitude, listening and speaking skills, work ethic, teamwork, leadership qualities, time management, decision-making, and conflict resolution are the social skills most employers want in employees they retain. Skills training comes from the belief that neurodiverse soft skills need correcting. Shaming and hypervigilance in social interaction perpetuates an us versus them mentality in education and work environments, othering an entire neurotype in the pursuit of conformity and a profit. And the more invisible the disability, the more awareness we need to encourage inclusion. Social skills training can lead to a lifetime of chronic anxiety, perpetual self-consciousness, self-doubt, self-stigma, and hypervigilance for people with invisible neurodiversities.
Annie, I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm sorry, we're running out of time here.
Okay.
So we will share Annie's presentation within the chat if others want to see. I think we've just missed a couple of slides at the end. So, and there will be opportunities for everyone to ask Annie some questions at the end. We'll now turn the floor over to Christina Viskachil and Brittany McLeod, who will offer their presentation.
Thank you, Gail. I'm just going to share my screen with that. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to the presenters before us. I've learned so much from both of you, and I'm very excited to share this third segment of the panel today called Operationalizing Neurodiversity Inclusion in the Workplace. So to start off with, take it away, Christina.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. So my name is Christina Viskachil, and I'm a career coach with Autism Can Tech, or ACT, at Northwest College. To provide a visual description, I am a white woman in her late 30s with shoulder-length brown hair, bangs, and glasses, wearing a blue and white woolly cardigan and headphones. I have over 10 years of combined experience working in education, including with students of varying abilities, Indigenous students, newcomers, and English language learners. I also bring 5 years of coaching experience to my role in ACT, with expertise in helping post-secondary students develop academic and executive functioning skills. I have a Bachelor of Arts honors from MacEwan University, as well as a Master of Arts and Bachelor of Education from the University of Alberta. I'm also autistic and bring to my practice lived as well as learned experience.
And my name is Brittany McLeod. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Inclusion and Accessibility Consultant. I am 5'3" tall with long light brown hair, blue eyes, bangs, glasses, and I am white skinned, and I am in my mid-30s. Today I'm wearing a green long sleeve dress and headphones. I have 15 plus years of professional training and experience building, supervising, facilitating training, and supporting fully inclusive environments. I have a Bachelor of Education from the University of Alberta, as well as am certified in ICF accredited life skills coaching and have had training in professional counseling. I am neurodivergent, Currently, I work directly with employers across many industries to operationalize effective best practice of inclusion and accessibility, specifically for autism and neurodiversity in the workplace. I am also a member of the ADHD Association of Greater Edmonton. And today, this is a bit of an agenda of what to expect from Christina and I. So Christina will begin by talking about how the ACT program is supporting participants to enter the workforce and showcase their skills through work experience and career coaching. And then I will speak on how the ACT program is facilitating employers to operationalize inclusion in their organizations through my consulting services.
So, how is inclusion operationalized for work experience in the ACT program? ACT implements 4 types of support to operationalize inclusion for participants' work experience: natural supports, application and matching, on-the-job guidance, as well as tools and assistive technology. Natural supports includes involving guardians, but also professionals such as career coaches to help participants develop the skills necessary for work experience. The level of support is individualized and offered in class, weekly drop-in sessions, and one-on-one monthly meetings. Support includes preparing a resume, cover letter, and interview video as part of an application package, helping the participant understand work task demands, and supporting supervisor and participant relationships. Prior to the participant going on work experience, career coaches assess participants' employability skills, gather information about their work interests and supports needed, as well as consult with instructors on participants' technical proficiencies so that the best match can be made. Participants are encouraged to showcase their skills and strengths in their application package, as well as rehearse their interview responses so they may build their confidence. When participants finally meet the employer partner for a 30-minute coffee chat, they are prepared to confidently state why they want this work experience opportunity and how they are the ideal candidate for the role. While participants are on work experience, career coaches must balance the unique skills of each participant with the specific needs of the employer partner. Before a participant begins work experience, employer engagement coordinators conduct an assessment of the workplace for potential work challenges such as noise level, task descriptions, and predictability, as well as office layout. In addition to this, employer partners are required to complete a 5-hour course that provides an overview of autism, tips on how to create an inclusive work environment, ways to support employees so that they are successful at work, the importance of defining job roles and tasks, as well as what to expect before, during, and after work experience. An on-the-job mentor or work buddy is also arranged to deliver additional support throughout the work experience. Supervisors are encouraged to provide daily support when participants begin work experience, which may become less frequent over the 8-week period. Support can include providing direct instruction, delivering prompts and modeling, observing execution of tasks, and offering feedback. In some circumstances, it can also include development of problem-solving skills, as well as planning and prioritization of individual responsibilities. Consistency and feedback is crucial, which is why career coaches arrange individual bi-weekly check-ins with supervisors and participants, as well as group meetings for midpoint and final reviews. The use of technology has allowed career coaches to better aid participants in having a successful work experience. For example, the employability skills assessment tool is used to facilitate discussion about skill development during midpoint and final reviews. In addition to this, ACT has partnered with Technology North to use RoboCoach. It is a web-based platform that allows supervisors and coaches to provide behind-the-scenes support to participants while maintaining their dignity and independence. RoboCoach has built-in features that can be used to facilitate wellness checks, manage schedules and tasks, as well as improve communication to reduce ambiguity. To review, the 4 types of support ACT offers are natural supports, application and matching, workplace guidance, as well as tools and assistive technology. Most of these supports are accessible, easy to facilitate, and low cost. I encourage you to consider what type of support will you implement when you return to your workplace.
Thank you so much, Christina. I'm now going to move on to the next portion of how the Autism CanTech program offers supports to different stakeholders in our connections and our partnerships. So this section is about how does ACT Consulting empower employers to operationalize inclusion. So this is has been developed upon working with employer partners that have hosted work experiences in the past. ACT Consulting was not present from the start of the Autism CanTech program, but through these partnerships and the hosting of work experiences, we saw a need for wraparound supports to employers as they apply inclusion concepts found in the asynchronous employer training that Christina mentioned that they complete before they begin their work experience hosting. And so from there, ACT Consulting was developed. So ACT Consulting has basically 4 guiding principles, and 2 of them are nothing about us without us, which is where autistic and neurodivergent experts are consulted and provided equitable opportunity to create, review, provide feedback, and present any of the content in the program in the consulting. As well, we follow a social model of disability. So much of the focus is put to shift the narrative within the workplace with regards to any of the services and discussions with employers towards recognizing the disabling effects of non-inclusive spaces. Because we know and advocate the facts that autism is not a flaw or a disease, and it does not need to be cured. These are the other 2 guiding principles where the consulting fosters allyship skills within organizations. And so this is done through providing authentic opportunities for folks to become more mindful of shifting power dynamics around autism, neurodiversity, and disability, reflecting on their own bias, unlearning ableism, and visualizing their own potential personal actions towards operationalizing inclusive spaces for autism and neurodiversity in the workplace. And so this scaffolds the learner experience and allows for a natural progression through the stages of change. We also follow evidence-based best practice. So ongoing research is being completed within the program, as well as being collected by research professionals to inform the iterative process of our programming and procedures. I am working with a team of evaluation professionals currently as we start to develop a benchmark tool as well to measure the progress of best practice for inclusion of autism and neurodiversity within organizations. And the goal of that is to be able to provide a tool that employers can use with consulting to be able to track progress and track their inclusion goals for autism and neurodiversity in the workplace. So some of the services that I offer are policy review, training services, and consulting. So to start with policy review, we look at the full policy review cycle. This service works towards removing systemic barriers to autism and neurodiversity. Our policy review team consists of folks with lived experience in autism, neurodivergence, and disability, as well as professional experience in policy review, compliance, and operationalization inclusion. Upon final approval of the reviewed policy, each client also works with me to build a practical operationalization plan and a maintenance plan as well for sustainability of their policy. Next, I offer training, and that includes workshops and micro-learning, which provides authentic learner-centered experiences for employers. It follows best practice for adult learning and centers autistic voices in the narrative throughout. Modeling and training of universal inclusive learning strategies and facilitation methods is also highlighted. I provide additionally some SME services, so subject matter expert services, to employers regarding their own learning pathway and curriculum development and delivery. In my consulting, this includes resource curation and development, employee resource group supports, inclusion strategy and roadmap development, individual inclusion and accessibility consulting for both leaders and mentors, coaching circles, change management, and communication support. One of the requirements for our employer partners who host participants for work experience to receive badging for operationalizing inclusion is to meet with me to create an inclusion sustainability plan for their workplace. ACT Consulting has worked with many clients already since beginning in June of this year, including workers' compensation in Alberta, the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, and Electronic Arts. ACT Consulting services are available to employers across Canada. So just to wrap up, Christina and I have 2 additional resources available. I should say 2 resources in addition to a PDF of our slide deck here for you to take home. One is an allyship tips 1-pager, and the other is a 1-pager on actions to take to operationalize inclusion for autistic workers in the workplace. Please reach out to me directly for any questions about Autism CanTech Consulting.